You know that feeling when you realize something terrible is happening, but everyone around you is pretending everything's fine? That's what our school trip to Sacramento felt like. And honestly, I still can't believe they got away with it. This happened during my junior year at Lincoln High in Fresno, and I'm only sharing this now because enough time has passed that I don't care about their stupid legal threats anymore. So here's the thing. Our biology class was supposed to visit some science museum in Sacramento. Nothing special, just a boring field trip. We were supposed to leave at 7 in the morning, but the bus didn't show up until almost 9:30. Mrs. Kepler, our teacher, kept calling someone on her phone and getting more annoyed each time. When the bus finally arrived, the driver was this heavy guy with a red face who kept apologizing and saying traffic was bad. I sat near the back with my friend Darcy and this kid named Finn who always fell asleep in class. The bus smelled weird, like old cigarettes mixed with something sour. Darcy had brought these spicy chips that she kept crunching really loud, which normally would have annoyed me, but I was too tired to care. We got on the highway maybe 40 minutes late. The driver kept saying over the speaker that he'd make up the time. Don't worry about it. He said it like 3 times, which felt weird. Why keep mentioning it? About an hour into the drive, I noticed the bus was moving kind of strange. We'd drift toward the right lane, then jerk back left, then drift right again. Finn was actually awake for once, and he whispered, "Is this guy falling asleep or what?" Darcy laughed, but I could tell she was nervous too. The swerving got worse. Other cars started honking at us. Mrs. Kepler walked up to the front to talk to the driver, but we couldn't hear what they said. When she came back, her face looked tight and pale. She just sat down and stared at her phone. Then it happened. We were in the middle lane when the bus suddenly lurched to the right. There was this horrible scraping sound, metal on metal, so loud it hurt my ears. We'd hit the guardrail. Sparks were flying past the windows like fireworks. I remember Darcy grabbed my arm so hard it left marks. Everyone started screaming. But here's the fucked up part. The driver didn't stop. He just kept driving like nothing happened. The bus was making this grinding noise and there was definitely something dragging underneath, but he kept going. A semi-truck next to us had swerved and its trailer was smoking, pieces of metal everywhere on the road behind us. We'd caused an accident and the driver just kept going. Kids were crying. Someone threw up. Mrs. Kepler was yelling into her phone. The other teacher, Mr. Park, went up front and started arguing with the driver. We couldn't hear everything, but Mr. Park kept pointing at the side of the road, telling him to pull over. The driver ignored him for another 10 minutes. 10 whole minutes of driving with the bus making awful sounds and kids panicking. Finally, he pulled into this rest stop, but even then, he didn't seem worried. He got off the bus and just stood there looking at his phone. 2 kids in the front rows were hurt bad. This girl named Melissa had hit her head on the seat in front of her, and there was blood all over her face. Another kid, Trevor, was holding his arm weird and crying. Mrs. Kepler called 911, but then got another call and suddenly she was saying, "Never mind, the school was sending someone." We sat in that rest stop for almost 2 hours. Nobody told us anything. The driver disappeared somewhere. A white van showed up and took Melissa and Trevor, but it wasn't an ambulance. Just a regular van with a guy in normal clothes. That felt wrong. Eventually, a different bus came to get us. We never made it to Sacramento. They took us to this cheap motel near Modesto instead. The teachers kept whispering to each other in the parking lot while we sat on the floor of the lobby. Some kids' parents came to pick them up. My mom couldn't leave work, so I had to wait for the bus back home later that night. The next day at school, the principal called an assembly. He said there had been a minor mechanical issue with the bus, but everyone was fine. He said Melissa and Trevor had been taken to a clinic for checkups and they'd be back soon. He made it sound like nothing. But Melissa didn't come back for 3 weeks. When she did, she had stitches above her eye and she wouldn't talk about what happened. Trevor transferred schools. Rumors started going around. Some kid said their older brother heard the bus driver had been drinking. Another person said the driver didn't even have a proper license. But every time someone brought it up, teachers would shut down the conversation immediately. My friend's mom worked at the district office, and she told him the school was dealing with something legal. Apparently, the bus company had complaints before, multiple incidents, but they were cheap, so the district kept using them. Then about 2 months later, my parents got this letter in the mail. It was from the school's lawyers. The letter said there had been an incident during a school trip, and they were offering a small settlement to affected families. But to get it, we had to sign this form saying we wouldn't talk about what happened or take legal action. My dad read it and got so angry. He called the school and they basically said if we didn't sign, we wouldn't get anything, and it would be difficult for me at school. That felt like a threat. Most families signed it. We didn't, but nothing ever happened with it. The whole thing just disappeared. The school moved on. They kept using the same bus company. I still have the photo I took right after we hit the guardrail. The windshield was cracked in this spiderweb pattern, and you could see the dent in the front of the bus. When my dad requested copies of the accident report from the school, they said they didn't have any photos. But I do. Sometimes I think about Melissa's face covered in blood, or Trevor crying and holding his arm. I think about how that semi-truck could have flipped over, how we could have died. And I think about how the school just covered it up like it was nothing. The driver never got fired as far as I know. The bus company is still operating. And everyone just pretended it never happened. That's what scares me the most. Not the crash itself, but how easy it was for them to make people forget. I'm going to tell you about something that happened on my 8th grade field trip to the Natural History Museum in Cleveland back in 2019. Every time I smell that weird, dusty air that old buildings have, I think about that night. And honestly, I wish I could forget it. So here's the thing. Our teacher, Mrs. Pemberton, she was always trying to do these cool activities to make us excited about learning. Most of the time, it was boring stuff like extra credit projects or documentary days. But this time, she announced we'd been selected for something special, an overnight sleepover at the museum. Just our class. 23 kids total. We'd get to sleep next to the dinosaur bones and old artifacts. Everyone thought it sounded awesome. My best friend Darcy was super excited. She kept talking about it for weeks. I remember her mom packed her this giant sleeping bag that smelled like lavender detergent. My mom just gave me our camping stuff from the garage that probably hadn't been used since I was like 6. We got there around 7 in the evening. The museum stays open until 5 normally, so they'd closed early to set us up. This curator guy, Mr. Holloway, he met us at the entrance. He had this thin gray hair and wore these thick glasses that made his eyes look huge. He seemed nice enough, but also kind of nervous, like he kept checking his watch and looking at the other staff members. They took us to this wing I'd never seen before during regular visits. It was way in the back, past the geology section. The lights were dimmer there, and everything felt older. The display cases had these artifacts from like ancient Egypt and Rome, pottery and tools and stuff. Some of the descriptions on the placards were faded so much you couldn't read them anymore. Mr. Holloway explained the rules. Stay in this wing. Don't touch anything. Use the bathrooms down the hall if we needed to. Then he showed us where they'd set up sleeping bags in rows between the display cases. The parent chaperones, there were 3 of them, would sleep near the entrance. I remember Darcy and I claimed spots near this big statue of some Greek god. The statue's face was half worn away, which was kinda creepy, but whatever. Our classmate Jasper set up on the other side of us. Jasper was this quiet kid who always wore the same NASA hoodie. Around 9, they turned off most of the lights except these small emergency ones near the floor. The shadows made everything look different. Weirder. Mrs. Pemberton told us to settle down and try to sleep, but nobody was tired. People were whispering and giggling. Someone's phone kept playing TikTok sounds until a chaperone told them to stop. That's when I noticed the air felt thick, like when you're in a basement that doesn't get enough ventilation. I didn't think much of it then. Old buildings always smell and feel weird. Midnight came around and suddenly this alarm started going off. Not the fire alarm, just this beeping sound from somewhere in the walls. It went on for maybe 10 minutes before it stopped. Mr. Holloway came in looking annoyed and said something about the system acting up. He left again. After that, people started complaining. Headaches, mostly. Darcy said she felt dizzy. Jasper looked pale and kept rubbing his eyes. I felt okay, just tired. Really tired, actually. Like I could barely keep my eyes open even though I wasn't sleepy before. I don't remember falling asleep, but I must have, because next thing I knew, someone was shaking me awake. It was morning. Early morning because the windows showed that gray light before sunrise. One of the chaperones, Mrs. Rodriguez, was going around waking everyone up. Her voice sounded panicked. Get up, get up! We need everyone awake now." I sat up confused. My head hurt like hell and my mouth was so damn dry. Darcy was already awake next to me, looking scared. Other kids were stumbling around. That's when I saw the commotion in the corner. 2 kids, Emma and Brandon, were still lying down. A teacher was trying to wake them up, but they weren't responding right. Emma's eyes were open, but she looked out of it. Brandon wasn't moving at all. Mrs. Pemberton was on her phone calling 911. Her hands were shaking so bad. She kept saying, "Yes, yes, we need an ambulance immediately." Everything happened fast after that. Paramedics arrived. They brought in equipment and oxygen masks. They took Brandon out on a stretcher. He still wasn't moving. Emma could walk, but barely. They took her too. The rest of us got herded into the museum lobby. Nobody would tell us what was happening. My mom came to pick me up around 8. She looked terrified. She hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. In the car, she told me Brandon had stopped breathing. The paramedics got him back, but it was close. Real close. The official statement came out 2 days later. Carbon monoxide leak. An old furnace in that wing had malfunctioned. An unforeseeable equipment fault, they called it. The school sent out this long email about how they were cooperating fully with investigations and offering free counseling services. My dad's an accountant. He likes checking things. He requested the maintenance logs for the museum through some public records thing. When he got them back, entire pages were missing. Just gone. And there was this invoice from a heating company dated 3 weeks before our trip for emergency inspection. Immediate repair recommended. Darcy's mom knew someone who used to work facilities at the museum. That person told her the furnace had been flagged as dangerous. The paperwork got misplaced, apparently. Nobody followed up. Brandon was in the hospital for a week. Emma got out faster, but she hasn't been the same since. She's quieter now. Doesn't really talk to anyone. The school gave us all free counseling appointments. I went to 2 before stopping. When my mom checked the school budget report later, she found a line item, incident resolution. That's what they called it. The money they spent to make us feel better about almost dying. Nobody got in trouble. The museum's still open. That wing's closed now for renovations, but I bet they just don't want anyone asking questions. Sometimes I wonder if Mr. Holloway knew. The way he kept checking his watch that night. The way he looked nervous. Did he know something was wrong and they did it anyway? I don't go to museums anymore. Can't handle it. That smell, those dim lights. It all comes back. And I can't stop thinking about how we could have all just not woken up. How it would have been this tragic accident that nobody was responsible for. Just an unforeseeable equipment fault. There are moments that split your life into before and after. Mine happened on a June night in 2019 at a camp outside Boulder, Colorado. What the school called an unfortunate accident was actually something much darker. And the worst part? Everyone who knew the truth decided to pretend they didn't. I'm Reese. I was 16 when this happened. Our school did this annual trip to Lake Mercer every year for juniors and seniors. It was supposed to be this bonding experience before graduation. Team building exercises, campfires, stupid trust falls. That kind of thing. The camp was pretty basic. Old cabins that smelled like mildew and bug spray. A dining hall with long wooden tables. And then the lake. Dark water that looked black at night. Pine trees everywhere. It was actually kind of nice during the day. I remember on the second day, my friend Darcy found this weird bird nest that had fallen from a tree. She kept it on the windowsill in our cabin even though it smelled musty. Just one of those random things you do when you're bored, I guess. The seniors had been acting strange the whole trip, whispering to each other. looking at us younger kids with these knowing smiles. On the third night, one of them, this guy named Trent, came up to our cabin after dinner. "Tonight's the night," he said. "Welcome right. Everyone does it. It's tradition. We'd heard rumors about this. Stupid pranks, basically. Nothing serious. They made it sound fun. Exciting even, like we were finally being let into some secret club. Around 11 p.m., they gathered all the juniors down by the shoreline. Maybe 20 of us. The counselors were supposedly doing bed checks, but looking back, I think some of them knew what was happening. They just didn't care enough to stop it. The seniors had set up this whole thing. Flashlights in a circle, a spinning wheel they'd made from cardboard and a stick. It had different dares written on it in marker. "Nothing crazy," Trent said. "Just fun stuff. Builds character." At first it was harmless. Someone had to sing a song backwards. Another person had to do jumping jacks in the lake water. Everyone was laughing. The energy felt good. Normal teenage stupidity. Then, they brought out the blindfolds. "Makes it more interesting," said another senior, a girl named McKenna. She had this smile that didn't reach her eyes. The dares got weirder. They made this quiet kid named Jonah run along the shore blindfolded while they threw pine cones at him. Made someone else eat a handful of dirt mixed with lake water. People were still laughing, but it sounded different now. Forced. I should have left then. We all should have. They spun the wheel for this freshman named Ellis, skinny kid, barely 14. He'd been quiet the whole trip, keeping to himself mostly. The wheel landed on something, but I couldn't see what it said from where I was standing. "Polar bear swim," McKenna announced. "Blindfolded, 30 seconds in the water." Ellis looked nervous. "I'm not a great swimmer," he said softly. "It's shallow near the shore," Trent said. "Come on, man. Everyone does it. That's the thing about peer pressure. It doesn't feel like pressure in the moment. It feels like you're the problem for not going along with it." They tied the blindfold on Ellis. Too tight, I remember thinking. His hands were shaking as they led him to the water's edge. The lake looked different at night. Darker. The moon made these weird reflections on the surface. "Just walk in until the water hits your waist," McKenna told him. "Then walk back. Easy." Ellis started walking. The water splashed around his ankles, then his knees. He was moving slow, careful, testing each step. Then someone pushed him. I don't know who. It happened fast. 1 second Ellis was walking, the next he stumbled forward and fell. The splash was loud. Too loud. At first, people laughed. They thought it was part of the joke. But Ellis didn't stand up. The water where he'd fallen started moving weird. There was splashing, but it wasn't normal splashing. It was frantic, desperate. And then I realized he'd stumbled into a current. The shore dropped off suddenly in that spot. Everyone knew that during the day. But at night, in the dark, Ellis hadn't known. The laughter stopped. Someone screamed. I think it was Darcy. Trent and 2 other seniors ran into the water. One of the camp counselors, this guy named Mr. Halloran, came running from the cabins. He must have heard the commotion. It felt like hours, but was probably less than a minute. Mr. Halloran pulled Ellis out of the water. The kid was coughing, gagging. Water poured from his mouth. He wasn't wearing the blindfold anymore. It must have come off in the struggle. Everyone stood frozen. The silence was worse than the screaming had been. Ellis was alive, but barely. Shaking. His lips looked blue in the flashlight beams. Mr. Halloran wrapped him in someone's jacket and carried him toward the main building. "Nobody move," Trent said. His voice had changed. Gone was the joking tone. Now he sounded scared. "We need to get our stories straight." "What the hell are you talking about?" I said. Or maybe someone else said it. Everything felt blurry. McKenna spoke up. "If we tell them what really happened, we're all screwed. Trent's on a football scholarship. I'm supposed to start at UC Denver in the fall. This could ruin everything." "Someone could have died," Darcy said. Her voice was shaking. "But they didn't," Trent said. Ellis is fine. Mr. Halloran saved him. It was just an accident. A kid went swimming at night and got in trouble. That's all anyone needs to know. I wanted to argue. I really did. But I was 16 and scared and didn't know what else to do. Over the next hour, they made us all agree to the story. Ellis had snuck down to the lake alone, decided to go swimming, got caught in the current. Mr. Halloran happened to be doing rounds and saved him. That's it. No mentions of the wheel, the dares, the blindfold, any of it. The next morning, the school's principal arrived. They sent Ellis home early, said he was shaken up, but okay. They praised Mr. Halloran for his quick thinking and heroic actions. They called it a tragic accident that thankfully ended well. Ellis's parents wanted answers. They pushed for an investigation, but the school district had lawyers. Good ones. They talked about precedent, about protecting student privacy, about how a criminal inquiry would traumatize everyone involved more than it would help. I heard later that the seniors involved got internal discipline. Basically, secret suspensions that wouldn't show up on their records. Nothing that would affect their college applications or scholarships. A few weeks after we got back, one of the counselors, not Mr. Halloran but a younger woman named Ms. Chen, pulled me aside. She looked tired. "I know what really happened that night," she said quietly. "But the administration prefers we handle these things internally. They think it's best for everyone, best for everyone." That phrase still makes me sick. I haven't talked to Trent or McKenna since graduation. I heard Trent's playing college football somewhere. McKenna's probably finishing her degree. Ellis transferred schools. I don't blame him. Sometimes I still hear it. That moment when the laughter changed, when everyone realized something had gone wrong. That brittle, frozen sound right before the screaming started. And I remember how, in the days after, everyone learned to avoid looking at each other a certain way. Like if we didn't make eye contact, we could pretend we didn't share the same terrible secret. The school still does that trip every year. They call it tradition.